Today we have a 1926 model Mack AB, and this old girl's been sitting for at least 80 years. I'm sure this old girl was probably parked at the beginning of World War II. She's been sitting just about forever. As you can see, the bumper, if you look right here on the bumper, you can see where cables have been pulled through here. I'm gonna say there was a pulley here, and it has a road winch thing on the back. So it's probably used for pulling stuff out of a field, or it might have been like an old wrecker recovery truck. She does have this neat little plaque here on the side. The other one's missing. It says Mack, and it's in the dog's mouth. It's got a book that says hauling costs, and it's tearing it up. So I guess these are supposed to be the best thing to haul with. The engine's locked up dead solid. I mean, locked up solid. It's a 471 cubic inch motor. Let's see here. As you can see, that's a pretty big old 4-cylinder. That thing is bigger than a Cummins diesel, and she makes like 50 or 60 horsepower. So she's not real efficient for cubic inches to horsepower, but she is neat to look at. She's missing, I think this was a starter that went here, but the fan goes spin, but the engine don't. It says drain and renew oil every 500 miles. I'm not sure where the oil dipstick is. This here might be it. I haven't even checked the oil in this thing. Man, that's good. Well, I just think that's where the dirt daubers live. Yeah, that's all that's down in there. All the plugs look to be intact. As you can see, this one here is a plutonium plug. That's why it's that weird color. These was started making these back, well, they used uranium, I think, back in even the 20s, but these were around 1940, so it was probably running in like 1940, but probably parked around 41 or so, maybe later on. But it's got each plug in there. They don't look rusted off. These are older style Champions. All this looks intact, and the dirt daubers have plugged that up for us. So, I mean, it's all here for the most part, but she is stuck solid. Around on the interior here, we do have, well, she's pretty complete. We got the transmission. It is stuck in neutral, luckily, because if it was stuck in gear, it'd make a world of problems. This is your parking brake, and this is something else, maybe another brake. Say that's another parking brake? I'm not real sure. This might be a shifter of some sort. We'll have to look at it. Ain't paid a whole lot of attention to it. I don't know how to check the oil, like I said, because I don't see a dipstick on this thing. Underneath, the oil pan does have, well, it kind of looks oily, so that's a good thing. But all in all, she's all here. The drums are locked up, like I said, and them tires are old as can be. We're going to go ahead and pressure wash her off and see what we get. At least the Magneto's here. Hopefully it works, and we'll take the hood all the way off and clean this up, get some stuff soaking in it, fill it with diesel. It'll probably take a good, I don't know, 30 gallons of diesel to fill this thing up, but that'll degunk the inside, and hopefully it won't be too hard to get this old girl whirling over and running, because I gotta say, she's one of the neatest vehicles we've ever had to get running. Pull these little side caps off. Right here, you just kind of, after you unloosen it or loosen it, you just pull that right there, and as you can see, there's some dirt down in there from that dirt dauber nest. But these right here, so you can inspect the rods down there. You can see how big the rods are. We'll get a light here in a minute, and this one here just kind of wiggle and it comes out, and right there's the rods, and I mean, they look clean. You got a light, you can see the rods here, and they're massive. It's a 471 cubic inches, and the crankshaft is absolutely huge in this thing. Everything in there looks good. That is oil down there. It's just weird colored because it's probably 100 years old. It's probably trying to turn back into a dinosaur or something. And on this side here, you can see there's a bunch of stuff that's falling down that old dipstick. We're going to get a rag and clean up all that we can, and we'll Well, we're going to wash this out with diesel fuel. But first, we're going to crawl underneath there, pull that old drain plug, and see if there's any oil in it. And after we get that with quite a bit of diesel in it, that ain't really going to do anything for breaking it loose, but it will help clean all the crud out of that pan, which needs to happen. Then we'll pull the plugs and put some acetone transmission fluid down in there and maybe some PB Blaster. And hopefully in a few days, it might take a week, but this old girl should come loose because it doesn't look like water has ran down them rods. And that's normally what happens when if they get water or a lot of moisture, it'll run down. You can see a rust line on the rods, and everything in there looks pretty doggone good. It looks like water right there. Get that ready. And moment of truth here. Boy, that's warm water. Oh, well, didn't need a drain plug. A drain pan. She is bone dry on the oil, unless it's got some, yep, it's got gunk. It's gunk. Oh, uh-oh. Yeah. That's what a 80-year-old, at least, oil that's just set looks like. It's basically turned to grease. Oh, there's quite a bit in there. Oh, man. Good thing we had the big drain pan. It turns that weird red color. I'm not sure why, but that's how chunky it was. Them chunks are performance though, so nothing wrong with them. We're gonna let this drain for the next probably 24 business days, it's looking like on this one, because we're gonna have to come in there and clean the chunks up, well, out of the drain hole, probably 4 or 5 times. This thing's been draining for hours now, and well, it's still draining. We have one of these little fancy battery operated liquid transfer pump from the Harbor Freight. We got this thing. We was gonna buy one of these just to make things easy, but if you bought a 5-gallon gas jug, you got one for free. So even if it don't work like it's supposed to, I guess we didn't waste our money because we got a 5-gallon gas jug that we needed. We're gonna go ahead and put some diesel down in there first. Oh, that thing actually works surprisingly well. Some diesel down in there, and maybe that'll finish up our draining process. Sometime these should be warm enough, I think. We're gonna give them a good spray of the old PB Blaster, and yeah, that seems pretty warm. Some of these are almost rusted off, you can tell. And luckily these have that little indentation there, so you can just fill them up. We'll let that sizzle for a minute. We're gonna go on to the next one. Well, we're gonna skip this one because that'll catch on fire and go to these. There's only 2 plugs in this head, and there's 4 in this one because I guess they plugged them off for some reason, but we'll get them out. This one here looks to be the roughest, and hopefully none of these break off. I'm afraid that's gonna break off. Let's pull it back some. Oh yeah. It probably broke off, but at least we tried. And I've cleaned all this out, so there's no junk gonna go down in there, luckily. Let's do our spark plug test here and see how. It's hot. We'll do that later. Whew. Easy as can be on these. Ain't that handy? Hardly any rust on this one. I mean, that one looks brand newish. That's the plutonium plug. And this one, there is quite a bit of stuff on it, you can see. Well, now to the scary plug. Maybe I can get to it this way now. No! Dadgummit. Just don't want to come loose. There we go. I'm gonna leave that plug there for a while because it's probably 13 million degrees. Unless we can catch it with this. We can. Let's see. You can see, ooh, you can see there's quite a bit of rust on the end of it. I mean, it ain't terrible, but I'll show you guys the insides of the cylinders now, and looks like we're gonna be pulling the intake and probably trying to shop vac all of it out we can. We may leave the intake on for now and just fill the cylinders, then do that later. It depends on how much stuff it looks like is down in there. You guys can see down in here. This cylinder don't look bad. There's some rust in it. This one has just a little bit of, that's carbon and a little bit of a rat nest looking thing. Same with this one. Back here, there's quite a bit of surface rust and stuff on that valve. And this one looks clean. I'm gonna say this had an open exhaust valve, and so did, well, this one didn't, and this one didn't, because normally the ones with the open exhaust valve look the worst when it's a updraft engine, because the exhaust is where stuff gets in, and it's a lot harder for stuff to get past the carburetor than up here, than inside. We will have to pull the intake, but I'm gonna clean this one out, and all these other ones look good. We're gonna fill them up with the acetone PB blaster and anything else we can put in there to help her break loose. Cylinder number one's all nice and cleaned out now, so hopefully we can fill it up and it won't just leak past the valve. Oh, I think we're getting somewhere with this one. Yeah. It didn't have an open valve. This stuff does just slip by these rings really fast because I can already hear it hitting the oil pan and dripping out. Well, that one's still empty. It's just gonna leak past. Same with that one. It leaks past so fast. Just for fun, we're gonna see if it'll budge any, because the back cylinders have been soaking for a while. I highly doubt it. Not a lick. Ain't gonna hurt nothing doing that, as long as we don't put too much pressure on it. Well, only thing to do is let her set, and I'll get back with you guys in a day or 2 or 3 or 10 or 20 or 30. Just depends on how long it's gonna take this stuff to break her loose. This stuff normally works in a day or 2, but this one, it seems to really be stuck. It doesn't look like there's any real rust in the cylinders. I think it's just surface rust from it setting and it getting hot and cold and the cylinder sweating. So we've let this thing set for a week or 2, and well, the engine's still locked up solid. So I already took the spark plug tube off. It was only like 2 wires, and we've sprayed these with PB blaster and everything else. So we're gonna take the impact to them, pull the heads off of it. We'll pull the intake. I think it's the valve train that's hung up, because these shouldn't get water down in them, but you never know, because it's an updraft system. Looks like today's gonna be the day the head bolts just come completely out of there. If that's the case, that will make our job 10 times easier. Ain't that something? That one got stuck. Oh, it came out. And I know a lot of people like the Milwaukee impacts, but I've had this thing for like 5 years now, and I leave it out in the rain every time it rains, and it never gives up on me. So, well, crap, that's in the way. We got it though. Ooh, it's hot too. Uh-oh. think we about have it off of here. I know someone said that you could use plastic wedges. They had that idea to not hurt a head gasket. But since these are made out of asbestos and copper, and the copper is really thin, anything you have that makes direct contact with it that's pushing will fold it. So if you take your Sawzall blade or any flat piece of metal and lay it in there first on top of that gasket, it helps you not destroy it, I've found out. It's not 100% success rate, but it's about a 83.4%. And there we go. Please don't be carnage. Boy, there's a lot of stuff down in there. Kind of figured that. Look at all that nasty stuff. Boy, oh boy, this thing's got some big valves in it. The dadgum cylinders, you can put your fist in them and the dadgum don't even touch the sides of the cylinder walls. Good Lord. But there's all this junk on top of this cylinder, which is not good. It was good to pull the heads anyway, but we wanted to get her loose first, but well, at least we got that one off of there. So we cleaned all that up. I was hoping that was what was locking the old girl up, all that junk that was up there, but it wasn't packed that tight. It was just kind of setting in there from the dirt daubers living in there. Not sure how they managed to get in there like that, because these valves were closed. I'm assuming at one point this motor, maybe when the guy that got it before the guy I got it from pulled it out of the woods because it was still in gear, because the guy I got it from had it for like 20 years, I guess, and the other guy had it for over 20 years, and maybe when he pulled it out of the woods, the motor wasn't locked up and all that stuff was in there, and it just pushed up against there, and that could have locked it up. But it's still stuck, so we're going to pull this head off of here. It may be a valve train issue. As you can see, our ratchet strap is still tight, so she hasn't moved a lick yet. But I'll get back with you guys. We're going to take this head off. Hopefully it comes off fairly easy, and we'll clean them cylinders up, clean the head surface up, clean the valves up, and take the intake off, make sure there's no junk in there. And here in a little while, as long as the Magneto works, and as long as we're man enough to crank her over, hopefully we'll have her loose and running. Okay. It's loose. We're good to go. Oh man. There we go. Woo. There's not a whole bunch of junk in this, and the cylinders are real nice and pretty. You can see there's some little bit of stuff that hurt the head gasket, so we're doing good there. It must be the valve stuck on this thing. As you can see, these cylinders are really clean as the other ones are. There's some carbon buildup, but it should just clean right off because that ATF and stuff cleans all that out. This valve's somewhat open. It doesn't look like that another one's supposed to open or anything, so not too sure what's locking her up. It may be the valve train, it may be something like that. Could be a stuck lifter, but we'll clean this up then. See if we can get her rolling over, because it still didn't roll after we cleaned that one up, so I'm not sure what's going on just yet. We cleaned them cylinders up, we'll shop vac them out. We'll take a wire brush and clean up that carbon and lead stuff buildup that's on it. But we're going to go ahead and see if we can get this thing to budge any. I did mess with the valve train down there a little bit to see, but it shouldn't be nothing holding it. The cylinders are clean as can be. Oh, I think it's moving. I think she's moving. There we go. Ha ha. Oh, it's stuck again. Nope, I just ain't tough enough. Never mind. She's moving. Come on. Boy, this thing's hard to pull, ain't it? Oh, man. Ha ha. Ooh, that's why we were stuck. That cylinder's pretty rough. So this one has some rust in it. Hopefully you guys can see that. I think you can, but there's a little rust and junk in this, and that's what's been holding us up. Listen to that. Boy, she spins just so smooth. She wants to live. Oh, nope, she's stuck again. Nope, she's loose again. I think something's binding up. It may have been one of them valves sticking, I don't know. They seem to all open. Oh yeah. There we go. That's what we want. She's rolling easy now. Yeah. So that came undone easier than I thought it was going to. It may have been a combination of the stuff in this cylinder and the rust that's around here, because there's quite a bit of rust and stuff. We'll clean all that up and around this piston and clean the cylinders out. Seems all the valves work. She spins over just perfectly. So next order of business is to clean everything up, take the intake and exhaust off, and we're gonna have to put some oil in this thing because it's just diesel and some transmission fluid right now. We do have to find how much oil it takes. I don't hear the Magneto clicking, so we're gonna have to work on that old girl. Hopefully she hasn't lost her magnetic powers or whatever it does down in there. And she turns over. That's the main thing. You can hear the rings. There's a little bit of junk in this and scraping, but she turns over smooth. So that's good to know. That one's gone forever. At least we didn't break anything just yet. Now, this should remove. Oh boy. And you can see that is all full of junk. The intake valves and all that's full of stuff. That's why we have to pull the intake. Also, it's cracked. Boy, should just slip off of there like that. We have to take it off so we can repair it because it's got a big old spot in it where I guess some moisture got in there. It just rusted itself out. Now, if we take this out, we're going to have the same exact problem trying to put it back in. So the best thing to do is wiggle everything out of the way that we can and try to snake the intake itself out underneath all this so we don't have to deal with all that. Okay, the intake is loose now. That's water in that carburetor because I caught it on fire earlier, so no big deal there. Now, set this back here and this here and try to avoid a disaster here. Oh, boy, that's heavy. There we go. And voila. And we've cleaned some more on the engine. We also cleaned the intake up. I thought the broken piece was right there where it's broken. I thought that went into the intake part, but it doesn't. It just goes around it. I'm not sure how the fluid was leaking out of that, but we're going to make sure there's not a crack in there. But everything on the engine looks really, really good. We've been running it up and down, kind of cycling the pistons to clean the cylinder walls and make sure there's no more junk in there. But I took the cap off of that thing with a bolt and it kind of sprung up, so we're going to go check the oil filter over here and see what it looks like. I'm not exactly sure what type of oil filter they use, but I took that off of there, and I guess since it's in the nice warm sun, all the grease is going to come out of it. And, oh, I have never seen an oil filter like that. It's pretty chunky. I guess, 80 years, I guess it turns back into crude oil. Is that filter? That's filter. That's filter material there, and that's rust. So that's filter. That's grease and filter and grease and filter and grease and filter and just junk. We're gonna have to pull this thing out of here somehow, and looks like it comes out like that. And boy, is it in there good. Okay, that may be a two-hand job there to get that off. We'll have to put the camera down. What in the world's going on here? Is it just stuck? It's stuck. Really, really well. Oh, dadgummit. That made a mess. Smells terrible. We got some of that in the cylinders, but we can always shop vac it out. I'm not sure where you get a replacement for one of these bad boys. We would normally pull the head gasket and spray both sides, but it's stuck to the block, and if we pull it off, we'll separate the copper pieces, and it'll be no good after that. So this will have to do. No good way to do that. Woo. Is it on there? It's on there. Just gotta wiggle and jiggle on it. And just like that, goes on a lot easier than they come off. Now a little bit of oil on these so we can get them to torque down good. Voila! We will have to pull the radiator, the connector tube there to put the radiator hose on, but all in all, we got that one on there. Pull all these bolts up real quick, and we'll start putting her back together. It's time to drain the diesel oil mixture of all the stuff we have down in this crankcase out of it so we can, clean it up the rest of the way. I'm not sure if this thing will hold every bit of it, so we may have to be putting this drain plug back in. Hopefully it gets rid of all them chunks. It's pretty chunky. Pretty chunky still. We'll have to do this again later, because you don't want none of that in the oil pump. And now it's this thing's turn. Okay, that's how it's supposed to go. And just like that, we have a homemade oil filter. I'm sure they sold replacements back in the day to make that thing work, but this thing's about 100 years old, and they probably quit making them 50, 60 years ago. Decided to pour down the rain today, but we're about to put some oil in this thing. We did have to put a patch on the oil pan there with some JB weld because this stuff's really hard to weld, and we didn't want to take it off there. It had a crack in it, so we did that so it won't leak out our oil. But everything in there's cleaned out. We're about to put the covers back on, then fill her full of oil. As you can see on the bottom of this rod, you see that little, it's kind of like a spoon, but it's more like a hook. That slings oil up into the rod, so we do have to have enough oil to fill that part of the tray. So we're about to fill it up with some oil and see how much it actually takes. Hopefully 5 gallons is enough. Put that old 5-gallon bucket of oil in here, and as you can see, it's touching where it should be. There's a little less back here because it's leaning that way, but I think these take around 17 or 18. We put about 20 in it, so it should be more than good enough. And at least we're one step closer to getting her running again. bolts are now torqued down. I torqued them down to like 85, 90. That should be right there in the range. One place said 115. I'm not sure how reliable that source was, so they're like at 90. Some of them may be a little bit more, and we should be good to go. Now we're gonna go ahead and throw these plugs in here and see how hard this thing is to turn over with compression, because the more stuff we've put back on it, like the heads and all that, it's getting harder and harder to turn over. So hopefully we'll be able to whirl this thing around by hand fairly easily. No guarantees though. After this, we have to throw the intake on and the valve train cover and work on the old Magneto, and I think that's the last few steps. We will put a cooling system on this once we get it running, but right now we're just focusing on getting her to fire up for the first time in 80 years. Well, at least 80 years it's been said. I guess it's time to see if she's got compression. And hopefully she ain't too hard to turn over. Oh boy. Good Lord. She's got compression. Whew. She's got good compression. This one is going to be fun to hand crank. Hopefully she starts good, because I don't know if we have enough ugga-duggas to crank on this thing like we did the old 29 GMC and all the other ones, because she's a lot harder to turn over than you think. We put the intake on here. We got the carburetor cleaned up, the fuel line hooked back up, even though the tank ain't hooked up, but we will fill the carburetor up with fuel here in a minute. Plugs are tightened down. All this is done on this side. The last thing to do is to come over here and see what this old Magneto looks like. We do have to put some new plug wires on it, and after that, as long as the Magneto works, we just need to give it some starting fluid and gas, and we should be able to hand crank her over, and hopefully she'll fire off pretty easy. As you can see, that is a solid piece of aluminum or something here, and that's part of your connector points there. This is all brass. I mean, it is very well made. They don't even look very corroded for setting as long as this thing did. They look really clean. They do need to be cleaned up a little bit. And this is the gear that drives your, basically your distributor bug. And this just sets here like that. And that locks it into place, more or less. And that's what gives you the spark you need. And that's what, the timing and all that. So, I've been cranking on this thing for a month of Sundays, and we cleaned all the points up. And it seems like it's got a, sometimes it gets spark, and sometimes it don't. I'm not going to show you guys probably the 3 hours I've been cranking on this thing, but sometimes it sounds like the Magneto's clicking and getting spark, but it's not getting spark to the wires yet. If you spray her down real good with starting fluid and spin her, sometimes you'll see a little bit of smoke from the points. Like they're getting spark, but they just ain't getting spark. If you know what I mean. I'll try to stay out of y'all's way, so maybe you guys can see that I can see. I swear they're getting spark. I hear it. Every time now. Maybe the Magneto just needed to be spun on forever. That's every time now. I'm here. Didn't do it that time. Did it that time. Did it that time. Did it that time. Okay, I think they're getting spark now. Maybe that Magneto was just, well, I guess it's lost its magic from setting for 80 years, and maybe it just needed a lot of cranking. 9,400 and I think 62 or somewhere around in there. Whew. Come on. cranked and cranked and cranked and cranked on this engine, and she ain't starting still. I think she's getting spark, so I went ahead and put a little bit of engine stop leak in cylinder number 1. We're gonna do that to all the cylinders and give it a little spray of starting fluid before we put the spark plug back in it. I can smell gas in the cylinder, especially on this plug when I pulled it, so it is getting fuel. It's just, maybe it doesn't have enough compression because the rings may still be stuck a little bit, so that engine stop leak should give us enough compression to get her running. I'm gonna go ahead, do that to all 4 cylinders and get back with you guys, and hopefully by then we can have her running. Come on. She go to do it. Come on, old girl. Come on. Come on. I'll restore you and make you all nice and shiny if you'll run for me. You're just gonna have to run off ether for a while till we get you broke back in. Whoa. Oh, come on. Man, wow. Let's pull her all the way back and see. I've cranked on this thing for I don't know how many hours. Counting yesterday and this morning, it's like 2 o'clock now, 1 o'clock. Since like 8 this morning on and off, so I've been cranking on it 4 hours a day. Or 5, not real sure. Let's open the choke up just in case that's our problem. Come on! Oh girl, you caused me a lot of trouble today. And yesterday and the day before. But nevertheless, you gotta run. You gotta run. That's all there is to it. I'm gonna give you some more time. And if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. Crap. Whew. Come on, you. Come on. You like that starter fluid, don't you? Come on. on, stay running, old girl. Oh boy. She gonna run. Beat yourself, go on. Go on the back. Come on, old girl. We're gonna try this again. Ooh. She's a runner. Might not have been a good idea to keep them up there, but she's a running. We're gonna get some more gas because we need more gas. She runs off gas really well for, I guess, as rough a shape as she was in. It seems like she runs with about that much choke, and it seems she runs. That's all I gotta say. This has been the hardest one I've ever messed with to get running, like cranking on it wise. I thought I was gonna die before this thing would start. Now we're gonna get gas, a lot of gas, a whole lot of gas, and a bunch of little spray bottles, and we're gonna keep her fed and get her hot. And then we're gonna let her sit overnight, and tomorrow we're gonna try to get her running. You can see some steam coming out of the engine coolant top, I guess you'd say radiator hose, metal radiator hose, but I'm excited she's running. runs. She don't like ether at all. I'm deaf in one ear now because that thing is extremely loud. We got her running. We kept her running for a while. Let's go around. So after 80-something years, we got the old girl running, and I gotta say, she runs really good for as long as she has sat. And it did take me like 20 hours of hand cranking this thing to get it to run. And I mean, I thought I was never gonna get this thing to start, but finally, after I cranked on it, she fired up, and she runs really good now. I put the axle shaft in the rear end. We were gonna try to get her driving for you guys, but we ran into a problem. The transmission was stuck in neutral, luckily, when we got it, and, well, she's pretty rough. She's not as rough as we've seen up top, but the gears are rusted in a way that they will not move either way, and down in there's pretty rough too, so we're have to soak. Well, you can see there's a whole pile of rust down there. Luckily, a hole had rusted in the side cover, and it didn't stay submerged for probably only 40 years or so, but them gears are, you know, pretty good metal. We're gonna soak this in some vinegar. It'll probably take a couple weeks of cleaning on this to get everything loose, and we may have to tear it apart, but the drums are stuck too. When we went to get this thing, I had to pull the truck up underneath it because it would not roll. You can see the flat spots there. When before the guy got it, he pulled the axle shaft because he thought the rear end was locked up, but no, it's the drums, and they are stuck dead solid. But all in all, we got her running. She runs good. She does need some seals in the water pump. We need to replace that piece up there and get the bolts out because they all broke off. But all in all, oil pump and all that stuff works. So you guys will see this truck again. We're going to restore it, put new tires on it. And, you know, once we get her all nice and shined up and on the highway, we might even pull a bulldozer or something with it. Well, a small one, because that's what she was built for, to be a workhorse. And, well, she ain't old enough yet to retire. But thank you guys for watching. Please consider leaving a like or maybe subscribing, because we got a lot more cool content coming to the channel. And next week, we'll have a really cool old car. And I'll see you in the next video.